Well, thank you for joining me this morning. My name is Rob Hawk. I work with the online department, and I'm here to help everybody learn the tools in Blackboard. Today, we'll be talking about the Rubric tool. The Rubric tool can be found in your control panel, and you go to Course Tools, and you select Rubrics. It seems like the rubrics has a lot of moving parts, but they're all fairly simple. So we're going to start the real basic stuff today. First, we're going to start just by creating a rubric. In the rubrics area, you just go to the Create Rubric button, and you click that. And you're given the Create Rubric interface. The first thing you do, just like pretty much everything you do in Blackboard, you've got to give your rubric a name. I'm just going to call this new rubric, and a description. The description's really for you, as for your reference. Your students don't see the description. I'll add a description for myself. And then we scroll down a little bit further and we get to the rubric detail area. And this is the meat and potatoes of our rubric. By default, you're presented with a 3x3 matrix for your rubric. You can, however, change that up, and we'll get into doing that. So first, though, we're going to start by deciding what kind of rubric type we want to have. By default, it is set to percentage. It's probably the best thing to use. I know at NEC we want to present a very standardized way of grading. Using the percent is usually the best way to go about it, but you can present it with no points, points. You could create a point range or a percent range. I'm just going to go with this flat percent, and you'll see that everything kind of reflects that in the different areas. But if I changed it to points, you'd see all those things change from percent to points, etc. I'm going to go back to percent. All right. You can also turn off the criteria weighting. So by default, it's turned on, and on the left-hand side of the rubric, you see how much weight each category is worth. But you can turn that off by this checkbox right next to your rubric type selection. So we have our standard 3x3 matrix, but if we need to add or subtract to that, we have some tools to allow us to do that. We have these add row and add column buttons, and it's as simple as that. If we want to add another row of criteria, I can click add row, and you always get these little info bubbles that show up. So I've got one that says row added. When they're there, if they're annoying, you can just close them by clicking the X. Now I have a new row, which I need to title and add more information to. Likewise, if I come back up here, I can add a new column. And on the far right side, you'll see I've got another column here called new column 4. And I've got that little info bubble. I'm just going to close that. You know, in your standard rubric, your rows are your different criteria. Your columns are the definitions for those criteria. So I've got these new rows and columns I've added, but I need to give them names. Everything, like everything in Blackboard, everything in here has a little menu associated with it. And you see them by hovering over the item, and you get this to the right, this little chevron. If you click on it, you get a little menu. And by clicking edit, you can go and edit the name of the row or the column. Um, um, and just simply by changing it, you've got your thing. And likewise, if you have something extra that you don't want, for example, my new column I've created, I've decided I don't really need that. I could come to its menu and open it up, and I could select delete this column. And again, I get a little info bubble. I don't know if you see it popped up over here to the left, just says column removed, letting me know that the task has been accomplished there. As I'm creating my rows and columns, I might need to rearrange their order. And I can do that for the rows. I can do that with this criteria button on the left-hand side. By clicking that, I'm presented with a list of the different rows. And by selecting one and using the up and down toggles, I can change where they appear in the matrix. So I've moved my formatting down a couple of levels. I'll submit that, and we see now that formatting is down here at the third position. You can also, using the criteria button, quickly change the order in reverse by clicking this reverse order button, and it just moves everything in reverse order, just like that. Likewise, the levels of achievement button lets you rearrange your columns. It's a little bit of different interface. All you need to do is select the column you wish to move and use the left and right toggles to move it in its order. It also has a reverse order button. Once you've got your columns organized pretty much the way you'd like, now's the time to add the all the information you want to present to your students. So to create your different definitions for each level, all you've got to do is click into the text box presented in each box and enter the information you want to present. There's not much in the way of editing tools provided. There is a spell checker. So if we start typing and we see that we have a spelling error, we could use our spell checker to change the spelling of the item. But it's as simple as that. Enter your different definitions in each of the text boxes. And if you need a little more room to work, you can expand these boxes out. But that's pretty much it for creating your definitions. You can also set the different percentages for each definition as you go. As you're creating those definitions, you can define how much each definition is going to be worth in your rubric for that particular category. Each so Debbie is asked if NAC has a standard percentage rating for each category. NEC does have some standard rubrics that the online group we're working on getting into everybody's courses, and they do use some standard settings. Off the top of my head, I don't know. Tatiana might know, but I could certainly put you in touch with Joellen or Jennifer, who would know that information and get that to
Yeah,
you.
I don't know off the top of what those criteria would be, but you could use as an example the ones that are created if you're
Yes,
looking for an idea. So,
yeah, and I will be showing you guys some of the standard ones that have been created by the online department for you guys. um, I will say that depending on when your course was created, you should have some standard rubrics already predefined for you in your course, and I'll show you how to find those in a little bit. um, so we define our the percentage for each category, and then likewise we have to define the weights for each category, and the weights are in the left-hand side under the names of each category. If you just want to provide apply equal weight to each category, at the bottom of your matrix, there is this area that says total weight and tells you the percentage. You have a button that says balance weights. By clicking that, it will automatically divide the categories evenly and apply an equal weight to each one. Your weights have to equal 100% when you're done. If they do not, the Blackboard will try to automatically help you with the math. So make sure that your weights are going to add up to 100%, or Blackboard will decide for you. Once you have your matrix created, you just click the submit button in the lower right hand corner. I've got some bad calculations here. Oh, right. Well, let's give this 100% here. All right, now we can, there we go. All right, so I've created a new rubric, and here it is right here in my list of rubrics. It's called New Rubric. There's my description. This is for grading purposes. If I wanted to look at it, I could click its little menu and click open, and it would present me with a pop-up window showing me the rubric I've just created. And I'm going to close this window. And here in my rubrics list, you'll see I've got some already created rubrics, and these are examples of some of the rubrics I was talking about earlier that we've been setting up for everyone. There's one for discussion board, one for final presentations, infographics, oral presentations. And I'm pretty sure there's a couple more. There's a writing rubric. But if these predefined rubrics are not quite up to what you'd like to use, you can always edit a rubric, whether it's your creation or something we've put in there. In that little contextual menu, there is an edit option, and I'm going to edit my new rubric that I just created. And what that does is it brings you right back to the screen we were on before when we were creating. It populates all the information we've put in there, and I can go in and I can change that information. And once I'm finished changing it, I just hit the submit button again, and all my changes have been made. If you have a rubric you really like that you do not have in another course, but you'd like to be able to put it into that course, you can export a rubric. And so here's my new rubric. I want to export it. So I'm going to check its box on the left-hand side and come to the top of the column. There's a button that says export. By clicking that, it'll show me the rubric that I'm exporting, its description, and then where I want to export it to. You can export it right to your computer, or you can put it into your content collection. And if you're not sure what content collection is, it's a repository where you can keep files and whatnot for yourself to work on all your different courses. And we'll be doing a webinar on using the content collection. So we'll get into that at another time. But for now, I'm going to export my rubric to my local computer. And I just click the submit button to do that. And I'm given a download button. When I click that, I get a zip file that I can save to my computer. I'm going to go ahead and save that right to my NEC folder. Boom. So yeah, it creates a zip file. You download that zip file, and then you can load that zip file into a different course. And you can do that by going to your rubrics area and clicking that import rubric button. And you get the standard screen where it asks you where you want to look for your rubric. And you can see I can browse my computer, or I can browse my content collection. Well, I saved it to my computer, so I'm going to go there. And I'm going to find my rubric. There it is, my rubric export file from my test course. It's a .zip. I'm going to say open. And here it shows me the file I've selected right there. And so now I'm going to submit my entry. And I get a little log of information, how long it took me, if it was successful or not. There's a little OK button in the lower right-hand corner of that screen. I'm going to click that. And I'll come back and you'll see now I have two rubrics called new rubric because I've imported a copy of that rubric. If I was in a different course, I wouldn't have two, obviously. I'd have just the one. But that's how you can export and import your rubrics if you need to move them around, add them to courses you're already instructing, etc. So these contextual menus, I've shown you a couple options. You can open it to view it. You can edit the rubric. You can also make a copy, and we'll just do that. And you'll see now that there it is, right at the top. And when it makes a copy, it adds the words copy of to the name. So if you make a copy of your rubric, you won't get confused if they, but by having multiple rubrics with the same name. This way you can go in after you copy it and edit it if you want to change up some information, give it a new name, add different criterias, etc. It's a good way for using a base rubric to build off of. You can also delete rubrics you've created, and when you do so, you get a pop-up that asks you if you really are sure you want to do this because it is a final move. If you do it, it cannot be undone. I'm going to say yes, and when I do, it removes the rubric from my list. And that only applies to this course. If I was in a different course and I had a copy of the same rubric there, that copy would still exist. And the last item in this menu I wanted to show you is this View Associated Content button. And that's a neat feature that allows you, actually, I'm going to go up to my discussion board. And it's a nice feature that allows you to see all things inside your course that are using that rubric at the moment. Here, I clicked on I was using the discussion board rubric, and I could see that I have a discussion board forum that is using that rubric at this time. So there's a question in the chat about advantages to using the pre-built rubrics. So the pre-built rubrics are made by the online departments, working with the different folks in the different departments to make sure that everybody's using the same set of standards. Tatiana could probably speak more to that. But it is the advantage is that everybody's using the same criteria to judge to score the students, and that way the students are used to using the same format every time they do an assignment.
Well, and there's advantages to using a clickable rubric, which is one of the advantages of having that a rubric in Blackboard with the little squares, so that when you're grading, you're clicking on those little squares.
And so thank you. It's nice having Tatiana in these sessions with me. She has a bit more information on the on the course creation side that I don't have. I'm just the tech guy. I'm going to go back to my rubrics area. So using that view associate kind of, it's a very nice way to just see what things you've in that course are using the rubric at the time, in case you want to do things to the rubric or change it or delete it. So that's managing your rubrics. Let's talk about adding a rubric to an item in your course. I'm going to go to my course content area. I have lots of pre-built assignments and tests in here. I'm going to come up to an assignment I've created where students are handing in a paper. I'm going to edit it. And there's lots of information about creating assignments. And if you need help with how to create assignments or viewing the area where you go, feel free to reach out to me. But for now, I'm going to come down to the grading area, where it presents me with the ability to add a rubric to this assignment. So when you hover over this button that says Add Rubric, you're presented with three choices. We'll start with the first one, which is Select Rubric. And this is a pretty straightforward option. When you click this, it gives you a pop-up box. And the pop-up is your list of rubrics in this course. So I can assign a rubric from this list to this assignment. I am going to select the final presentation. But I'm not quite sure. I don't really remember what's on that rubric. So I want to view it real quick. And there's this little handy button right next to the name of the rubric. When you click that, you'll get another pop-up that presents you the rubric and all the information associated with it. So you can take a look at it and make sure it's the one you want to use. All you can really do with this is close it once you're done viewing. And if that's the one you want, you can check it off. And then in the lower right-hand corner of that pop-up window, there's a submit button. We'll submit that. And we'll get a message here that says, click OK to assign the rubric's maximum points to the points possible. And that's something I wanted to point out is I already had the points possible set to 100, but if it wasn't, it would apply the points possible from the rubric. So if you had a different points possible set for that assignment, it would take the rubric points possible and override that area with that score. So in general, the rubric is going to take precedence when you apply it. Once you add it, right below you see the name of the rubric and its type and the date you've applied it, etc. And you get a series of buttons associated with each thing, with each column here. Uh, we'll start with this red button that has an X in it. If you decide this is not the rubric you want to use, you can click this button and it'll remove it from the assignment. Likewise, if you need to view it again, you can click the little view window next to it. And then lastly, there is an edit button that will give you another option for going in and editing this rubric. Now, if you do edit the rubric, it edits the rubric for everything. It's not just for this assignment. It will be, if you edit the rubric will be edited for everything. So under the type column, there's a little button that says that currently says used for grading, but when you hover over it, you get an option that says used for secondary evaluation. If you select the used for secondary evaluation, it will allow you to create your own points possible. Thank you, Debbie. Have a great day. It will allow you to change the points possible to whatever you want, and it will not use the rubrics scoring system. Okay, occasionally that might be an option you need, but for the most part, you're going to use the used for grading setting. And then lastly, far to the left, there's a show rubric to students. By default, it's set to no. But if you're using a rubric to grade your students, it's probably a good idea to show them what criteria they're going to be scored with. You have a few options here. The first one is to show the rubric with its scores. So it essentially shows the entire rubric to the student. The second option is to show the rubric without the scoring system. You just see the categories and the definitions for the different levels of achievement. And then the last is after grading. So they will be presented with the rubric, but only after their assignment has been graded by you. I am going to show it with the scores. And we'll see that I get a little green check mark here. Once you've applied your rubric, you can submit in the lower right-hand corner. And now the assignment has a rubric associated with it.
Can I ask a question?
You absolutely can ask a question.
You mentioned something about changing if you edit the rubric, it changes everything. And, that kind of, I was wondering, does that mean that the rubric, if it's changed, it will change not only for the course, but whoever else uses that rubric?
Oh, that's a good question, Tatiana. So your rubrics are course specific. So if you edit a rubric either through that interface or in the rubrics menu, it will only edit the rubric for that particular course. But if you're using that rubric for multiple assignments in that course, if you edit it in one place, it'll be edited for every application that you've used it in that course.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
And so those are the basics to using the rubrics tool. It's not super difficult, but it does take a little preparation and organization. Are there any questions about using rubrics?
I did want to point out one more question, one more comment is
Sure.
that even though you do have the criteria, let's say you put 15 for proficient participation, when it comes time to grading, you can change that so that you can manually override in Blackboard. That's my understanding.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, so you don't have to stick to it. Those are just kind of overall guidelines, but you can present a range, even if it's not written there on the clickable rubrics.
And if you go into your course and you go to your rubrics list and you don't see some predefined rubrics that you didn't create, and you need those from us, feel free to contact myself or one of the instructional designers, and we can get those rubrics to you.
And that was one thing I was going to comment on, Rob, is I'm new on the faculty. I've taught 2 semesters, course for 2 semesters, and I didn't have this setup. I was kind of manually operating my grading system. So this looks like I can take what I've done manually and insert this into this rubric, and it will start doing all of the calculations for me.
That's true. That's correct.
I like that. It was a very time-consuming part of my grading.
Yeah, having the rubrics really helps speed up things, and it helps you stay organized, which is great for your students. Absolutely. Any other questions?
Would we be able to see what it looks like maybe from a student perspective?
Yes. Let's do that. Give me 1 second. I'm going to log out of my faculty account here, and I'll log in with my student account. I'll go to my course. So I'm in as a student now. I'm going to go to my course content area. I believe this was the assignment here, hand in the paper. Oh, I've already submitted this one, but so I've already, as a student, I've already submitted this assignment. But when I'm looking at my assignment, I see my grade that I've gotten from my instructor over on the right-hand side, and there is a button by my attempts area that allows me to view the grading rubric for this assignment. When I click that, I can see the description. I can see all the information about the rubric so I know how I've been graded as far as this goes. And once I'm finished viewing, I can say exit. Any other questions? What do we tell the students? It's the view rubric button. I guess that's really just what you could tell them if they want to see the rubric matrix. Tell them to click on the view rubric button. You could even describe it to them that it looks like a chart.
Could you, Rob, could
Yeah.
you remind me, so how do I see which assignments have a rubric and which don't?
Oh, sure. So the easiest thing to do would be to go to your rubrics list and go to course tools, rubrics, and you can look to see which assignments are assigned, have that rubric assigned to them by going to the menu for the rubric and viewing the associated contents. And here I've got a forum in my discussion boards associated with the discussion board rubric. Is there a way to get like a quick report of a list of what has rubric, what doesn't? There isn't, unfortunately. You'd have to, if you want to check each thing, you'd have to go to each item individually and look at them.
Is there, if you go under, I was thinking if it was manage grades or something, manage categories or something like that, that you could then see if there was an associated rubric underneath it. I remember there was some list like that.
Well, let's check that out real quick in the grade center. If we go to our full grade center, under manage, let's see, we've got categories, we've got column organization. Yeah, I don't see anything that shows a rubric being assigned. But Tatiana, I will do a little more research just to make sure that, you know.
Yes, it is.
Hi,
I'm well. How are you?
I'll do a little more research to make sure that
Yeah.
that there isn't a way to do that. And if there is, I'll let you know.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Any other questions? Okay then. Well, thank you for joining me this morning. And we're doing webinars every week, one on Monday, one on Wednesday. And if you have any technical questions for Blackboard, feel free to email me at rhawk@nec.edu. I also have Zoom drop-in sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if you need help with organizing and designing your course, feel free to reach out to our instructional designers. They'd be happy to help you with that. Everybody have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.